Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove and I'm joined by a man who I think is as excited as me because it's World Cup Eve. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. It hasn't really hit yet, strangely. I think it won't hit until we're maybe 5 minutes into Russia, Saudi Arabia.
Would it hit tonight when you sort of go to bed, you think, I'll just go to sleep and the World Cup starts in the morning, and then you can't sleep and you're looking out the window to see if Santa's come?
I'm not familiar with anything that you've just described there.
To see if Gianni Infantino...
World Cup Santa, yeah. Gianni Infantino.
Flying through the sky with
creeps
reindeer
down your chimney. The World Cup is here. And then he leaves. Yes.
So the World Cup starts tomorrow. Russia, Saudi Arabia. We will be previewing that game towards the end of today's show because there's all kinds of other World Cup news. This is the reason I love the World Cup, is all kinds of mad stuff happens. That I think there's a thing of everybody's... already at 100 and you all put into this big environment together and then just all the news happens at once.
I mean, it's crazy time and I'm excited to talk about it. I will add, if you do want a FIFA member to come down your chimney, all you have to do is, instead of milk and cookies, you just leave a small sack of money and then they'll come down. That's how it works.
Put out a spread of brown envelopes.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Preferably fat ones.
And then you wake up to find out that you're hosting the U20 World Cup somehow. Allegedly?
And you have to build
Does that cover me?
You've got to build 5 stadiums.
Perfect.
So we're going to talk about Lopetegui, the former Spain coach, later in today's show. But first, the big news of June 13 is in the early hours of the American morning, the United bid, the USA, Canada, Mexico bid for 2026 World Cup hosting was victorious.
Woo!
Woo? Well, that was a fake woo.
No, it was
Did
me
you not
trying.
celebrate?
It was a measured woo, so I didn't blow out people's headphones.
All right, so every federation got a vote. Basically, it's a new system that they do, and the US, Mexico, Canada bid beat the Morocco bid 134 to 65.
In your face, Morocco.
If this was basketball, it would have been a blowout.
It would have been. Even more so blowout over the one vote for none of these, or none of the bids.
Which was a genuine, as I understood it, that was a genuine thing that could have won. And then the United bid and the Morocco bid would have been off the table for the next round.
Yes.
So if there really was like a neither, none of the above, that could have been victorious.
That was not the case, though.
It was not the case.
Since it ended up getting 1/200th of the vote.
So just so everybody knows, in the year 2026, which sounds like the distant future.
It's not.
But 2018 used to feel like the distant future to me, and it's here already. The US, Canada, and Mexico will be co-hosting the World Cup. Worth breaking this down, because I feel like in the past few weeks we've picked up some new listeners who have not heard TSS before, maybe are not as nerdy day-to-day following this stuff as we are.
Yeah. It is, and it's especially worth noting because I feel like I think about talking to people who don't know much about soccer or are sort of like followed during the World Cups, and it's going to be increasingly difficult I just picture 2026 and talking to somebody and they're like, but wait, wasn't the last one in like December? Wasn't it only 32 teams? Like, it's going to be a lot of, well, yes, okay, it was that this time, but it isn't this time, but next time it will be this. Yes, so it's probably good to get some of those facts out now.
So here's the thing about the 2026 World Cup. 48 teams for the first time ever, unless 2022 gets expanded.
They've already said it will not. FIFA, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I believe FIFA came out last week and said it will stick with 32 for Qatar.
Okay, but in 2026, 48 teams. That means 80 matches. There'll be 80 World Cup matches. 60 of the 80 matches will be held in the United States, 10 in Mexico, 10 in Canada. I think the US has all the games from the quarterfinals onwards. Okay. The final will be at the famous soccer stadium, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey.
I mean, we all have fond memories, bouncing our grandchildren on our knee, talking about those good old... I have no idea what I'm talking about. That didn't happen.
Yeah, there's been soccer at MetLife Stadium.
It's a Giants. It is a Giant and maybe the Giants stadium, so it makes sense.
Also worth thinking about, it's been asked several times, will all 3 co-hosts, US, Canada, Mexico, get automatic qualification as the hosts of World Cups do, because it's the first time that there's been more than 2 co-hosts, right? Japan, South Korea, both automatically qualified. 3 teams may be a bit of a stretch.
I think that would be the case were it not also the case that we're moving from 32 to 48.
Yes,
so when you are increasing by that amount, maybe 3 doesn't matter quite so much.
But the official thing from FIFA is that we're going to look into this in the near future. So it's not guaranteed right now that US, Mexico, Canada will all get to have an automatic qualification.
I would agree with that. I know you have some thoughts on this. I would just add, though, I do think my feeling right now is that it will be more of a, that's definitely happening.
Really?
I think right now they're focused on 2018. I think still the logistics of the expanded tournament and everything that goes into that is not on the front burner for FIFA right now. And I think maybe after this tournament, maybe that's when they start looking at a little bit of the format and the scheduling, and that's when they'll say, you guys have, we think, 6.5 spots, so let's just make it 3.5 and you 3 are in.
Right now they're busy helping Putin hide all the racism and homophobia.
Obviously,
ready for the World Cup, right? That's pretty much what
still popping up here and there.
Right now.
Still those stories coming out.
Yep. So my unpopular opinion is I would prefer that the US had to go through a qualification cycle.
I'm not sure that's an unpopular opinion.
Why not? Okay, well, here's my reason just to support it, is that I think it's better to play competitive games and have to qualify than to play friendlies for 2 years where you're not as well tested because the opposition is not good. It's a friendly for the opposition too, right? You want some qualification, some competitive games.
I think I would agree with that completely. That's why I think I've seen other people make that point. And on top of that, it isn't the case now. I mean, with the number of slots that we think CONCACAF will get, 6.5, as we've said in previous shows, that's more than the number of teams that made the Hex. That's 1/2 team more. So, I mean, if we can't
right now,
finish,
it's 3.5 spots.
Exactly.
Is what we get.
So I think that is a huge difference. Maybe the one issue that we're not looking at is Canada. Because I think Canada...
I was about to say my opinion will be way more unpopular in Canada. Because Canada, you wouldn't bet on them to make a World Cup. Even with 6.5 spots, because they rarely make the Hex.
Yeah, and that's where I'm wondering if, like... I doubt FIFA would ever do something like this, but if there was an idea of... Let's see where you finish in the next qualifying for 2022, and then we'll see if you automatically qualify or not.
Oh, this has just come to me. So my worry about not enough competitive games, maybe the CONCACAF Nations League helps to solve that. Maybe it does, right? Because then it's not just a bunch of friendlies. The US could be playing competitive games in the CONCACAF Nations League to stay sharp.
That's a decent shout. I say that especially because my one fear has always been with World Cup qualifying that it takes away some of the spectacle, some of the drama of it. Now, it was not fun drama this past November, but... If it is sort of a... Yeah, that too. If it is
remember the 10th of October.
I refuse to. If it is a foregone conclusion, then it makes the sort of drama of will they or won't they qualify when now suddenly you've got 6 groups of 4 and the U.S.'s group is Antigua and Barbuda and 2 other teams that we should probably beat pretty handily. It makes it less of a dramatic thing. And so maybe then... It's not so much as competitive as being in a World Nations League or a CONCACAF Nations League.
Fair enough. Final thing on this. Maybe the case is that FIFA will have to smooth it over with the other CONCACAF members. Because great that CONCACAF gets the 6.5 spots expanded for World Cup 2026. But if three hosts automatically qualify... That's where those 3 spots come from. So suddenly there's only 3.5 spots left again. So maybe the other CONCACAF nations will want something in return.
See, I think I would disagree.
Maybe just a cash bonus.
I think I would disagree because they all chose to vote for this bid. So the implication there, in my opinion, is that it means they've already gone to them and gotten concessions or made a plan for this is how it's going to work.
So the smoothing has been done.
I would say so.
Maybe with some metaphorical milk and cookies?
That's a distinct possibility as well.
Well, there'll be lots more to talk about with the 2026 World Cup over the next 8 years as we get amped for soccer coming home.
Yeah,
sort of.
Sure.
If football was coming home to England, then soccer is coming home to the United States.
Perfect.
Football to Mexico and also soccer to Canada.
And I think if we're going to gauge it on which countries have maybe hosted the most World Cups recently, then it proves that the United States and Mexico are the home to international soccer.
England should get a World Cup. In this era of Premier League popularity, England should get a World Cup.
Should but won't. Also, Mexico, first country to becomes the first country to host it 3 times.
Ah, yes.
Well done,
yes,
Mexico.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So it goes Mexico, USA, and then England somewhere in the bottom.
And we didn't mention them in qualification, but we assume they would easily qualify, as per usual.
I would say so.
As per usual.
Yeah.
All right, shall we move on to talk about the actual 2018 World Cup news? So I was saying at the top of the show that when you get towards a World Cup, wacky news, exciting news starts to happen because tension is high, drama is high, everybody's on edge. And the big news today, or really late last night, right? Well, we stayed up late.
I would say early this morning.
Early this morning is Spain coach Julen Lopetegui has been fired 48 hours before Spain's first game of the World Cup against Portugal. Justifiably, I'm going to say.
All right.
So there's a bit of a backstory here, right? I'm going to turn it over to you, Taylor, for the Lopetegui backstory.
Sure. So this, like, rumors of this first began last night, like early morning for us. We finished recording the Group H preview. I saw the headline of that Luis Rubiales, the head of the Spanish FA, was considering firing Lopetegui, and I said that's not going to happen.
But
and I woke up to it being done.
Let's back up even more, though.
Yeah.
Why would he even consider firing a coach who took over and hasn't lost a game? Spain were looking great. A lot of people were talking about them as possible champions in Russia.
And signed a contract extension 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, signed a contract extension through Euro 2020.
Yep.
So what has happened in the last few days?
Real Madrid has happened. It turned out Real Madrid were in...
Perez. Spain got Perez.
Yep. They sure did. Real Madrid were in negotiations with Lopetegui, unbeknownst to everyone except for the two parties I just mentioned. So Luis Rubiales was notified 5 minutes before Real Madrid issued a press release on their website stating that the move was going to happen. He called Lopetegui immediately upon hearing this. There was no answer, so he immediately took a flight to, I think, Krasnodar is where they are staying doing their training.
Get the plane, Rubiales said.
Yeah, basically.
They said, we don't have a plane. He said, get me on a commercial flight. And they did.
And he got there. He met...
but first class.
He met with Lopetegui. He met with, I'm sure, met with the players, met with staff, and I think was kind of told by all parties, don't fire him. It doesn't really make sense to. And I think he still just couldn't see past. I think I'm going to guess it was mostly a personal, emotional decision, but I don't think that makes it a wrong decision either.
Things can be two things.
Yeah.
This is one of these moments, right?
Yep.
Okay, let's talk about this then. Before we talk about how it affects Spain and what they do going into the tournament, I want to ask, what was Lopetegui doing? Why didn't he just say, no, Real Madrid, I don't want to talk about this right now. If you want me to replace Zidane, I'm honoured, but we'll talk about it after the World Cup. I have a job to do with Spain right now in Russia. Leave me alone for a bit.
I mean, I don't, first of all, obviously we don't know because we weren't part of these conversations or party to them. But in my opinion, it was him maybe not having the spine to be able to say, no, I can't talk about it right now, or yes, I can talk about it, but I need to notify people. It feels sort of like he knew he shouldn't be doing it, or he knew it was going to be problematic, which is why he did not notify the Spanish Federation.
Yes.
But then
it's
also
why he didn't answer the phone when Rubiales called as well.
The speculation is that he was already in the process of telling the players when that phone call came through. And if you're in the middle of an emotional speech about how you're leaving at the end of the tournament, maybe you don't then answer a phone call in the middle of that speech to say, never mind, I'm not going to be here either.
All right, that's the best excuse then.
But it still feels to me like he knew. I keep trying to compare it to like me in high school where I knew I'd made a mistake, but I was just like, ignorance is bliss. I don't need to deal with that. Like, it's where my mind keeps going with it.
Is it worth speculating that Lopetegui really wants the Real Madrid job? As you know,
I would say it's fair to say that he does.
Started his career there, right, as a young player with Castilla. I didn't quite make it at Real Madrid, but that's where he got his start. Wanted that job desperately because it's a big job, it's a great job. And maybe just felt like if I don't say yes right away, there's a chance that between now and best case scenario, July 15th, if he takes Spain to the World Cup final, Real Madrid finds someone else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it was sort of like now or never in terms of, he might have thought now or never in terms of saying yes to the Real Madrid job, and I'm going to hope that the Spanish Federation let me get away with it. He thinks it's better to ask forgiveness than permission.
I see, and maybe that's a possibility, but I would say that's still a poor excuse.
Yes, I agree.
Because
toughen up. Focus on what you're doing.
Well, not even that. It's just like, okay, fine. If Madrid are like, we need an answer in an hour, then do you really want to work for that organization? And then that's why I don't think they did that. I think it was probably just that he was like, yes, I'm really interested. And I also don't think that Rubiales would have been so upset by this if he had gone to them immediately and said, look, Real Madrid are interested in making me their manager. I know I've just signed this extension. I am interested in it. I would like to have a conversation about it, or I would like to proceed from there.
So because you get the approach from Madrid, you go to your boss, and that's the correct order of doing things.
Because it's happened in the past to Spain. Luis Aragonés had already agreed to manage Fenerbahce, but it was kind of a known thing, and then he made the move after the World Cup. The other one that's been pointed out was Louis van Gaal committing to manage Manchester United after he had managed the World Cup with the Netherlands. Yeah. The difference is that was more or less known by the people who it needed to be known by. It was also in advance of the tournament beginning. It wasn't 48 hours before their first game. And it also wasn't...
And Van Gaal's contract expired at the end of the World Cup. He hadn't just signed an extension beyond that World Cup. That's the bad part, right?
Yeah.
He signs... Lopetegui signs one contract May 22nd and presumably a new contract June 12th.
Yeah.
Right? That's the problem.
Yeah. And so I still understand why there will be people who think that Rubiales has overreacted a little bit here, because it does feel like he is sort of humiliated is a strong term, but at the very least embarrassed. That he's embarrassed by the fact that his manager was snaked by another organization, that he was sort of cut out of it, of any sort of conversation. And I mean, he found out 5 minutes before the entire world found out. That is not the way that's supposed to work. And so I really do think it was the sort of, again, I'm going back to my high school days, when I would make the mistake that ignorance was bliss. I just remember there were times when my dad would know about it, and it would be like, just sitting, waiting for me to come home from school to like have that conversation. It feels like that's what that plane flight was for Rubiales. Was just like sitting there getting angrier and angrier about the fact that everybody in the world knew. I'm sure, like, you know,
he's like your dad sitting on the step, like just waiting for you to come home.
Exactly. Yeah. But like, you imagine him leaving. It was like the FIFA conference is what he left to fly to a World Cup city. You know, there were people who recognized him. You know, he's a public figure. There must have been people who said like, "Hey, man, did you know this was happening? Like, what's going on? I can't believe this. Crazy news."
So even with that, I think we've established that we think Lopetegui did the wrong thing. Yeah. Right?
I think he is the most wrong of any of the entities in this one.
Okay, given that we've established that, should Rubiales still have let him? Should Rubiales not have got into his feelings? And still should have listened to the players and the coaching staff and decided, all right, he's done me over here. I don't have to be friends with him after this, but he's the best man to coach Spain at the World Cup. We should leave him in his position through the middle of July.
My genuine answer to that is we'll know in 2 weeks. That's what I'll say to you, is that if they make it out of the group and they look fine, and that is the case that Fernando Hierro has come in.
Yes.
He's
come down.
Yeah, he was the sporting director. He's come down and basically
said a few steps down from where you are as the technical director. You tend to have a position high up in the stadium, right? So he's come down to the dugout to coach the team.
But not to really change anything by his own admission. He says, like, we're going to keep the team as it was. We're going to keep the plan as it was. So if he's able to do that, if they get through and make it out of the group, maybe you'll start to hear those stories of like, yeah, we like the change. We like knowing that we've got a person who's going to be there at least for this tournament. I doubt that Hierro stays around after the tournament, but if that's the case, then maybe it works out. I have a feeling this is a destabilizing force. I know Gerard Piqué has said it won't be. Sergio Ramos, I believe, has come out and said it won't be.
So why would it be destabilizing?
Just because it's just unrest. It is public unrest in a team that historically has had fractured moments. Now, we all think of Spain as 2008, 2010, 2012. Those successes are very evident and very much to be celebrated. But for all of those successes, there have been those moments where Spain implode and shoot themselves in the foot.
And decades of it.
Yes, and this feels a little bit like that 48 hours before their first game in a difficult group where they're going to have known opposition and unknown sort of dark horse opposition to sort of suddenly be thrown into, in my opinion, chaos. It seems like chaos, and chaos that really already speaks to or emphasizes a divide in that locker room of Real Madrid, Barcelona.
Yeah, because Sergio Ramos, for example, Asensio, Isco, those are all guys that Lopetegui is going to be coaching come August.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to be his players very, very soon.
And so are they going to come out and say, like, yeah, this was terrible. It really threw us into chaos? No, of course they aren't going to speak ill of their new manager.
The Barcelona players, you could see them having a mindset of, that guy, he's caused us trouble here at the World Cup, and I'm fully against him for next season when he's going to be our rival. And that's why Gerard Piqué making a statement via Twitter, but that's as good as a proper public statement these days, right? I think Gerard Piqué's statement is really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he basically said that Michigan and the Michigan Wolverines in 1989 fired Bill Frieder, appointed Steve Fisher, who was his assistant coach. They go on to win the national title.
Yeah,
that's what
he wasn't that specific. He didn't seem to know.
He said Michigan
names,
Wolverines, I believe,
which suggests to me
that he loves Red Dawn and got confused.
I actually think it was in Spanish. I think he might have said like Universidad de Michigan.
Okay.
But it says to me that either he's a huge college basketball fan, which is possible because Piqué is a big sportsman, right? Or he's had someone, or he's done his own research and just desperately looked back through the ages
he's had someone
to find an example of a coach being fired before the tournament, someone else taking over, and then that team becoming champions.
Yep.
But he had to go back pretty far.
Yep, he sure
did.
He
had to use a completely different sport.
Yes, he did. And so I think there's going to be people grasping at straws to say it'll be fine, it'll be okay. The two things I wanted to point out, one is like a theory, like it's just an idea, and one is a thing that I personally believe.
All right.
The first one is
like a Westworld podcast.
Well, no, I'm not going down that route. That's way too confusing, and I can barely even understand what's happening in that show. Put it this way. There is now, I saw a talk yesterday of, I forget who the replacement right back is for if Carvajal gets injured. I forget the gentleman's name, and I apologize for that.
He's young and fast, is
yes.
Real Sociedad. Hey, this is Daryl here cutting in. The right back's name we couldn't remember, Alvaro Odriozola. Alvaro Odriozola is who Taylor is talking about.
But there's been a lot of criticism of him, that he has not looked good. He had to be subbed off at halftime of their most recent friendly, and by all accounts, that wasn't a planned substitution.
He was my young player to watch.
Which fueled some people asking, why didn't he bring Sergi Roberto? Now suddenly, if he's agreed to go manage Real Madrid, you get that little. If you get that little rumor, I don't think it's true, but if you get that little rumor of like, oh, of course he doesn't want to bring in a Barca player, that's all it takes to ignite a locker room. Is that little bit of dissent, that little bit of discord? It causes problems.
This won't make sense to you. It probably won't make sense to 95% of our audience. But if anyone out there has been watching Legion, there's a constant theme running throughout Legion where a bad idea is represented as like a slimy little creature, like made of ooze, that sneaks into your ear and just plants itself there, and you start having these sort of paranoid thoughts about what's going on. That's exactly what's going on there.
See, bad news can be bad, or as Douglas Adams posits, nothing in the universe travels faster than bad news. So I think there's like in one of the Hitchhiker's Guide books, it's used as a propulsion system. But my other little thing to note, I will say I got this from like the Reddit Red Devils page, the Man United page. The reaction to this news was, I mean, it means the future Real Madrid manager won't be in David De Gea's ear for the next month, so I am okay with it.
Anything else on this?
No, I mean, just I did not see it coming, and that it has, again, speaks to your point about how the World Cup, you bring in so many personalities, you bring in the best players in the world, for the most part, into one area, and it tends to create some crazy drama and some crazy news. So I don't think this will be the last crazy news we get about managers and FAs and decisions that are made, but I am pretty surprised that it's gone down this way.
Friday, 2 o'clock Eastern, we get Portugal versus Spain. We'll sort of have the results of the Can Fernando Hierro just take over and Spain play how they play, which was thrilling under Lopetegui. Can he replicate it? We'll find out soon. Because the World Cup kicks off tomorrow.
It sure does.
Before we get to Russia, Saudi Arabia, there's been some other news, other weird news coming out of various camps. I want to start with the Brazil news.
Sure.
And how their starting 11 for Brazil's first game has been leaked.
That is correct, and in slightly strange, like very much these are the times we live in sort of way.
Is this the first World Cup starting 11 social media accidental leak?
I mean, yes.
It is, right?
That's quite a Google search if you want to put that one in. Journalist Marcos Alves tweeted, journalists attended the first 15 minutes of Brazil's training session and then were asked to leave. Players' entourages were allowed to stay, though. And here comes the best part. One of Gabriel Jesus' pals posted an Instagram story and revealed Chichi's. All right, we're going to go Chich?
It's either Chichi or Chich.
I'm going Chichi. I can't go Chich. Chichi's 11 for their World Cup debut. Congrats! Exclamation point, says Marcus. So, yeah.
Do you know how? Was it on a chalkboard or was it a training session where it was maybe like first 11 against second 11?
I don't know.
My guess is it's the latter, that they saw. The reason the journalists were asked to leave is because the first 11 were going to play together.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just like he had them huddled up and the story was Chichi saying, here's my 11. And like the guy just didn't edit it out. Either way, not a great look.
Oh, turtle.
And if you... It would be a turtle thing. But I don't think he linked to the actual video or the actual Instagram story because I'm not sure you can.
Yeah.
But if you're wondering, it appears to be the same starting 11 as played against Austria in their recent friendly.
Which I think I know, top of my head. Give me a go. Alisson in goal.
Yep.
Back four of Danilo, Miranda, Thiago Silva, Marcelo. Don't you spoil it. Midfield three, Casemiro, Paulinho, Felipe Coutinho, and that's the big one, right? Is that they've gone extra creative in midfield by having not another defensive midfielder but an attacking midfielder in Coutinho, and then what I think of as the current classic Brazilian front three: Neymar on the left, Gabriel Jesus in the middle, Willian on the right.
Yes, I think all of that is accurate, but I also think that's something that we could have predicted. Like maybe there's a couple wrinkles in there, like maybe Fernandinho starts and Coutinho's ahead. Maybe it's Marquinhos or Thiago Silva. I feel like it doesn't necessarily change that much. If anything, I feel like this tweet was Marcus Alves, or Alves probably, being annoyed that they were.
Alves?
He's the journalist who
yes.
tweeted that this had happened. I feel like this is more so him being annoyed that they had to leave, but the entourage could stay.
Yeah.
And maybe the point being,
Press credentials are no good.
Yeah.
Let's get entourage credentials.
We know what a media blackout is or an embargo is. Entourages don't.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Unless this is a double bluff by Cheech.
That would be deep.
Because isn't he famous for announcing most of his roster early? He said his 15 of my 23-man roster. He's announced starting lineups early in the past before. Maybe this is a deliberate thing where he makes it look like the roster's getting out, but then he switches it up.
So you just think he asked Gabriel Jesus, which one of your friends is most likely to leak something?
Yes. Or your friends are dumb, but which one knows how to use Instagram?
How am I the one who has a reputation for crazy conspiracies when you're floating this idea? I love Chi-Chi, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he's going that deep on this stuff.
I think that actually is the starting 11.
Yeah.
To intimidate Switzerland.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. Other roster news. Yep. It's bad news, I think, for Mexico. Diego Reyes, who was a key part of Juan Carlos Osorio's plans. Right, he was either going to play defensive midfield or centre-back in the game against Germany, the opening game. He has been deemed not fit enough. It was a race against time, but he's not fit enough to take part in the World Cup. He's been sent home. Diego Reyes will not play at the 2018 World Cup.
Which is very much a shame for him, but who benefits from that choice, Daryl?
Erick with a K, Guttierez. Erick with a K, Guttierez. I've seen him play for Pachuca. He's a nasty midfielder in a good way. He's got some bite to him. He will knock some people over. He is a proper defensive midfielder.
He is. I have questions, though.
Yeah.
Because I had been going with the idea that maybe Diego Reyes would be dropped back into starting as a center back.
Because of the injury to Araujo?
Yeah, well done. But if they're bringing in another defensive midfielder, again, I can't tell. See, this is Juan Carlos Osorio's genius in who's the is it Vizzini from The Princess Bride? He makes me do that of well, it could be this, or it might be that, or you could be doing this. Clearly, he's doing that. I have no idea. But it does make me wonder if this means that Gutierrez is coming in to start, which would be a big shout.
I weirdly have that feeling.
Really?
I think because there's a lack of bitey defensive midfielders on the Mexico roster. This seems like the Diego Reyes injury gives Juan Carlos Osorio a chance to bring in the type of player that he realised maybe he was missing for that Germany game.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Or does it just mean that Rafa Marquez is going to start in both positions? It's a risky strategy, Con.
That 39-year-old man can barely play one position.
Hey. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, so how about that? How's that for a shout? Gutierrez to start the first game.
I mean, again, I could see him starting, I could see him sitting, I could see him being dropped completely. I have no idea what Juan Carlos Osorio is necessarily going to do.
I wonder if Jonathan Gonzalez had a moment of thinking, oh, maybe.
Well, except he wasn't on the Premier roster.
Oh, no, okay. Yep. So it was never a possibility.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I am still surprised because I believe Molina, I think that's his last name. He was the other one who was competing for... No, not Alfred Molina. Jesus Molina was theoretically competing for minutes. He did start a few of the friendlies before the roster was trimmed down. That he wasn't brought in was definitely surprising to me, which means Juan Carlos Osorio, I know this is going to come as a shock, knows the Mexico team better than I do.
Oh, interesting.
I know, right?
Okay.
You wouldn't think that.
That's why he's the coach and you're the podcaster.
Correct.
All right, there is your Mexico roster update. Any other World Cup news for today?
It starts tomorrow.
It starts tomorrow, 11 a.m., Russia versus Saudi Arabia. I think we're getting across that we are quite excited.
Indeed. So too are the folks at Roughneck Scarves, we're assuming, because they offer all types of, obviously, US, MLS, USL, NCAA, but they also offer many international team scarves.
Actually, Gerard Piqué has just bought a University of Michigan scarf.
Yeah, that
from
checks out.
Roughneck Scarves to remind the Spanish team of what's possible in 1989.
I like it. Why not? But yes, they do have, I would say every single team that's represented at this World Cup probably has a scarf in that shop. But if you wanted to design your own scarf to represent the World Cup, that's what we asked folks on Twitter to do.
We sure did. So I tweeted, it's World Cup Eve, because it is, and we're excited. If you were to design a custom Roughneck scarf to represent your pre-tournament excitement, what would it look like? We've selected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 answers to read on the show.
Mike Saurus, which I believe is the new dinosaur in the next Jurassic Park franchise, it says, me wearing all 32 jerseys and looking happy with the quote, I choose them all.
How do you decide who to support in each game?
You just see whichever jersey's on top.
Well, maybe this is Mike doing the thing that I think people should do, which is don't choose a team to root for. Just watch the games and enjoy them.
I was very confused for a moment because I thought you were about to be like, I've always advocated wearing multiple jerseys at once.
Chandler Bing.
Could I be wearing any more clothes?
Eric Freeman says his scarf would have Shakira on one side, Waka Waka on the other.
Boo.
Forever the song of the World Cup. Even if this time it's not for Africa.
Even if it was stolen 2 times over. Sure, why not? Dennis J. Kramer just sent us a gif of Carlton Banks dancing.
He did. He did the...
Not unusual.
What?
That's the song he dances to.
Is it really?
Yeah, isn't it?
I think
Tom Jones, right?
I think he just dances all the time to various things.
Oh, it's Tom Jones for sure.
Okay.
I mean, he might dance to other songs too, but Tom Jones is the one that gets him going.
That is very Carlton Banks.
Yep.
All right. Jersey Jonathan says, frontside says, let's all root for Mexico. Backside says, I don't want to root for Mexico and no one can make me.
I like that one.
Which is kind of a conversation that's been playing out all across the soccer sphere.
It is indeed. Final option comes from Connor Davis. On one side, Salah, Ronaldo, Neymar, and Muller celebrating goals. And on the other side, Messi holding a goat.
Have you seen the goat photos?
No.
No? Oh, I can't remember who he did it for. I think it was a magazine. Literally, Leo Messi holding a goat. A little baby goat.
Yeah.
Like goat as in greatest of all time.
Oh, I get it. It's just...
But then an actual literal goat.
But if he's the goat, why is he holding a goat? Is it his goat baby? Is that his progeny? Is that going to start for Argentina someday?
I have no idea.
The baby goat is the goat's baby? I'm confused now. Someone went like too literal with that, I think.
They did, yeah. That's lacking in poetry.
Obviously, it should have been Messi dressed up as a goat.
Yes,
that's the way to go with it.
Way better. I'm sure he'd sign off on that.
Is it Pan? Is Pan the flute-playing hedonist? Let's do that.
Can Messi play the flute? That's what we need to know. If you would like to design your own custom scarf, then you can do so at ruffneckscarves.com. You can use it to fundraise for an organisation, for a charity, for your team, anything you like, for Leo Messi's goat costume. That's how you want to raise money. The margins are very good, so you make a lot of money when you sell the scarves after you place a custom order with Roughneck Scarves. If you want to just shop in the Roughneck Scarves store, ruffneckscarves.com, you can use Total Soccer Show discount code, which is Total Soccer Show, all one word, for 20% off the price of anything you see at ruffneckscarves.com.
Beautiful. So thank you to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's episode of the Total Soccer Show.
And Jared Piqué, get that U of M scarf.
And Leo Messi, get that goat scarf?
Yeah.
Sure. Which moves us right along, Daryl, to our first like actual match preview of the World Cup.
The World Cup Eve. That means there's a game tomorrow, 11 a.m. on Fox. Big Fox, your local Fox affiliate, will have Russia versus Saudi Arabia, the opening game of the World Cup. We're going to preview the opening ceremony, right?
Yeah, totally. I can't wait to talk about all the bad music. I have to say, though, that we've been doing so much reading for these previews that we've just done that I genuinely thought that we previewed Group A 2 months ago. That's how it kind of feels. And I believe it was 2 weeks ago, maybe? Yeah. So it did require me to go back and reread my notes to get a good handle on these two teams. Then we went and watched some highlights. But I feel ready to talk about Russia and Saudi Arabia.
I had to listen to our own World Cup Group A preview to get ready for Russia versus Saudi Arabia.
All right. And were you like, really, guys? 30 minutes on Russia?
No comments.
All right.
All right, so the way we're going to be doing this is we're going to be previewing the games, not in a long way because it becomes old news and we're recording it probably less than 24 hours before kickoff, right? But what we want to do is just give our listeners things to watch out for in each game, things to look out for, things to be aware of in Russia versus Saudi Arabia, the opening game of World Cup 2018. First up, let's do the standard preview stuff. What are the stakes here? What are the stakes?
I mean, for Russia, this is it. I really do think they need a result. They cannot afford to lose this game.
Weakest team in Group A, Saudi Arabia, without a doubt, having watched a lot of footage. Weakest team in Group A. I think it's not a coincidence that Russia got drawn with Saudi Arabia and get to play them first.
Michel Platini would agree with you.
Well, there'll be a 30 for 30 about how this draw went down one day. I still think there's a chance they don't get a result against Saudi Arabia. I mean, pressure is on. Get it done here because Uruguay and Egypt are going to be tough, Russia.
I believe in that preview, I was still kind of up on Saudi Arabia. I remain so. Goldman Sachs, I think, backs me up. I sent you that article last night that they ran a million different simulations. And what they came away with was, amongst many other results, that Saudi Arabia make it out of this group at Russia's expense. Which would be fascinating.
That's like a Doctor Strange running different scenarios.
Yes, exactly. That's who they had to do it, actually. It's weird. You wouldn't think that would be the reality.
With his hair. Yeah. His hair moving as he did it.
Of course, for some reason.
All right, so why are you more confident about? Why are you more up on Saudi Arabia than I am?
I mean, I was until I watched them play Germany. I just think I'm not up on a lot of the teams in this group. It was reported just before we started recording that it seems like Mohamed Salah will miss the first game at least of the group stage.
For Egypt.
We'll see if that actually happens. Russia have not impressed me. They are still on like a 7-game winless streak. Saudi Arabia at least scored a goal against Germany. I just think it's much more open than it might seem upon first view.
Okay. Let's start with Russia then.
Sure.
The one thing I'm really confident about is Russia's formation. They will play some form of 3 at the back and then 5-1-1 or 3-6-1.
Yep.
Yeah? Does that seem fair?
It does.
Guys to look out for Russia. Number 17, Golovin. He is the star midfielder.
Yep. You will get no argument from me. I had him as the new Arshavin, I believe, in our preview.
Interesting.
And I think, you're absolutely right that it's like 3-6-1, 3-5-1-1 is going to be likely. So you're going to see Golovin getting into the attack, but I think also very much dropping in and being sort of that, like shielding that line.
He'll be everywhere. The thing I like about him is super energetic, willing to just run and hassle and win the ball back. But then he's very classy when he gets the ball and he rolls his socks down. Not all the way to the ankle because you can't show your shin guards, but he doesn't pull his socks all the way up. He does the English style fold over at the top of the sock.
My second one of the show, boo.
So look out for Alexander Golovin. The other Russian guy, I think, if you're only going to look out for a couple of guys, look out for number 10, Fyodor Smolov. He is the striker. I love that he is...
Obviously, the number 10 is the number 10, Darryl. What are you talking about?
Yeah, actually, Russia has a weird thing where the number 10 is the centre forward, Smolov, and the number 9, Alan Jagayev, is the attacking midfielder. So that's gonna be weird to see to begin with. It is some Russian trickery. Smolov is super eager. He's similar to Golovin. He's all over the place, always showing for the ball. You will see Smolov receive the ball, come deep, receive the ball, play it wide, dart into the box, try and get on the end of a cross or a low ball in. I've got a feeling that against these Saudi Arabian defenders, he's going to have some luck because we'll talk maybe about some Saudi Arabian attackers later. Everything I've seen of Saudi Arabia's centre-backs, I am not a fan.
Yep, I would agree.
It's harsh, but I think it's true. It's going to be number 3, Osama Hassawi, and number 5, Omar Hassawi. No relation to each other. They just share a last name. Number 3, Osama Hassawi is the captain. Number 5, his partner, Omar Hassawi. These guys look a little bit panicky to me.
Yeah, I mean, as emphasized by the fact that Omar scored an own goal against Germany, trying to dive in at the last second to make a defensive play.
It's a lot of scrambling.
But we saw a lot of scrambling against Germany. Now, that is admittedly because Germany are very, very good and looked it on the day. But I think you're absolutely right that there are going to be defensive lapses and holes that will open up that Russia could take advantage of. The question I have is, will they or will Saudi Arabia be super duper compact and really frustrate Russia?
If I was Saudi Arabia, that's what I'd do.
Yep.
Saudi Arabia actually are quite open for what I've seen. They sort of go for it because they want to lean on that attacking talent. But I think in this game, because Russia's weakness to me is that they can be very much counter-attacked on if they come at you. If I was Saudi Arabia, I would let them come, try and absorb it, and then I would try and get in behind them. Because here's the big thing with Russia. Their centre-back in the back 3, Ignashevich, 38 years old. He only recently came back to the national team, right, after suggesting he might be done. We even watched the most recent game where he was trying to cover ground from the centre, conceded a goal against Turkey because he just wasn't fast enough to shut it down.
Just a long ball right through the middle. Player ran right through. Ignashevich couldn't get there. And then even when he eventually caught up because the attacker slowed down a little bit, he was still running at full speed so that when he caught up, he ran right past the attacker when there was a cutback, and then it was a goal.
All right, and if we're looking at Saudi Arabia on the counter against Russia, if they can get something going, who are the players to watch?
I want to say before that, what I keep going back to with this game is that I would expect, sorry to kind of be the damper, I would expect the first 20 minutes to not be that exciting. Now watch them score 6 goals or something. But it does feel like one of those games when you've got two teams that look to defend first.
Yes, Russia and Saudi Arabia.
And then it becomes almost like who will leave the high ground first and who will be the one to kind of make that move. I think it will be Russia because you're going to have the home fans because they're going to want to get something going. And that's where I think they could get stretched. And that's where I think Saudi Arabia will be maybe coming at them with pace, probably down the flanks.
Well, here's the weird backwards thing, though, going to what you just said.
Sure.
Russia's normal approach is to be more conservative and sit deeper. Yeah. Saudi Arabia's normal approach is to be more expansive and go forward. But it's like the balance of power in terms of who's the best team in this game might switch that around, right? You might see Russia more on the front foot, have more of the ball, and Saudi Arabia decide to be more defensive than usual, mostly because they don't have the ball and also because it's their best chance is to counterattack Russia rather than to go all out guns blazing.
The only thing I would say that maybe I don't agree with in what you just said is that I think some of that is based on Saudi Arabia under Bert van Marwijk when they were going through qualifying and he had them playing a little bit more attractive, a little bit more possession, a little bit more goal scoring. They scored 17. I think that was the joint most in their group.
I forgot.
But he has gone. In comes Juan Antonio Pizzi from most recently of Chile fame, taking them to the 2015 Copa America. And that maybe points to it could be a little bit more defensive.
I think that was San Pauli. 2016 Copa America Centenario.
That could be. Okay.
Which he also won anyway. So.
Yeah, there you go. But I could see them being just a little bit more compact as a result because he's relatively new to this team. So maybe you go defense first and then you look to break because that's what players can do.
All right. And so who are the players that people should be watching out for if Saudi Arabia are on the attack?
So, first off, I'll say we're not entirely sure. We have a good idea, but they have been trying some different things and some different personnel in their most recent friendlies. The one that I think is pretty consistent and is going to be very much involved is Salam al-Dawsari, Dawsari, number
18.
There we go. Thank you, Daryl. Likely to start on the left wing if Saudi go with a 4-2-3-1. That's where I think he'll be, and I think he will be instrumental in getting that ball, getting it forward, and creating problems.
He's got some moves. Right? Whenever I see him, he's the one that can do like sort of a step over and accelerate away. He's the guy that can maybe break a defender. He's the guy that Ignashevich could end up chasing desperately.
Yes. Yeah. The other one on the other side, we think, would be Fahad al-Muwallad.
Yes.
Number
19.
Thank you.
So one of us has written the numbers down.
One of us is not. One of us is going off the roster I had before, which has the ages and positions.
I see.
It's not as helpful.
Oh, between us, we got it covered.
There we go. But I think those two, and then maybe you'll have Muwallad start up top. He's done that in one of the friendlies. Maybe he'll start out wide. Either way, I think those two will definitely be there.
He's definitely playing. And if you didn't listen to our Group A preview, the story with Saudi Arabia
Shame on you.
is the story with Saudi Arabia is their best few players, best handful of players, were sent on loan to La Liga teams this past season. The idea being that exposure to this higher level and then the Saudi Arabian League would serve them well at the World Cup. Most of them didn't get any minutes.
Nope.
I think Al-Muwallad did.
I think he was the only one who did.
He's the only one that did, but even he only got a couple.
And
games.
I think it was like the last or penultimate game of the season, and he got like 10 minutes as a sub. But it was the two we've already named, Salem al-Dawsari and Fahad al-Muwallad, and then the third one who went to Spain was Yahya al-Sheri, who I think will start as a central midfielder.
Is he the number 8?
You tell me.
Oh, I've got the... Yes, Yahya al-Sheri. I think he is the most creative midfielder. So he might be the guy that you see pick out a clever pass that no one sees coming. You know, like we thought it was going that direction, but he's played it this direction and he's broken it open. So number 8, Yahya al-Sheri is the most creative midfielder. Keep your eyes on him. I still think after some sustained Russian pressure, the central defenders, Hassawi, one of them will make a mistake, even if it's like a panicky tackle where they poke it away from someone, but they poke it, say they tackle Smolov, but poke it directly to Jagoev, and then he comes at them and scores. I think that's how this breaks down. They absorb pressure, but eventually make a mistake. Russia are on the scoreboard.
Here are the two things I think folks should watch for, which will give you a good insight into what is happening. Number one will be if you start to see Russia committing more and more numbers forward, that maybe speaks to, they're leaving fewer numbers in the back. That does leave them open to counterattack.
And then Ignashevich is suddenly exposed, right?
And I think the other thing to watch for is what Russia do when they're in Saudi Arabia's defensive third, that area. Because if what we saw from Germany is Germany were patient at times and direct at times. And it was a lot of through balls wide and then direct runs into the middle to try to get on the end of a low cross. And then sometimes it was shooting from distance. Sometimes it was trying to find passing combinations through the middle. Sometimes it was creative dribbles through the middle. But Germany had a varied attack and they still really did struggle to get clean-cut opportunities. So if Russia... This is what I'm saying, is that if Russia feel that pressure from the crowd, feel that intensity, feel that drive to try to get the goal, to try to get 2 goals maybe before the half is over, and they get a little bit too desperate to get the shooting opportunities, then maybe they're not taking the smartest chances, and maybe they start committing too many numbers forward, and that leaves them vulnerable at the back.
One of the things I want to pick up on is if Saudi Arabia get nice and compact, as they did against Germany, then Russia will be forced wide. Russia don't really have wingers on this team. They play wing-backs. So that means the wing-backs will be very important. The wing-backs are going to be number 18, Zhirkov, who Chelsea fans may remember from back in the day. Zhirkov is still going as the left wing back. He's a quality player. He's a guy that really can put in
Is he
nice...
though?
Yeah, I think he puts in a nice low cross or can pick out a nice cutback. He's not going to panic. I quite like Zhirkov.
Okay.
On the right, we think it's going to be
Alexander Semedov.
Alexander Semedov will be the right wing back. He scored against Turkey, I believe. If it's not Semedov, it's going to be the Brazilian Mario Fernandes. The naturalized Russian Brazilian is the more...
Are you sure? Are you sure he's not native-born Russian?
I am sure.
Right.
But he could be one that is a more attacking option. Yeah. Maybe he comes in later on. I wouldn't be surprised if Fernandes comes in late, changes the game for Russia.
All right, well, we'll have to wait and see. That game will be 11 a.m. tomorrow, first game of the 2018 World Cup.
And we'll find out if kickoff times are accurate.
We'll
find out if it's actually 11 a.m. or if it's 11:10. Can I just say one more thing? Beware, if Saudi Arabia score first, this game's going to get hyper dramatic because Russia will get desperate. So, as a neutral, you should maybe just be cheering for a Saudi Arabian goal early on.
Indeed.
Yeah? Okay. Shall we? So, we'll be back tomorrow to review that game. To close today's show, we've got some reports from the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network.
We sure do. It's several to get to, starting with Jonathan Holmgren scouting Foster Langsdorff, the 22-year-old American forward for the Portland Timbers. Langsdorff made his first team debut, coming on as a substitute in the Timbers' 2-0 win over San Jose in the U.S. Open Cup.
And if you're a new listener and you're confused, the Scouting Network is our listeners send us reports on up-and-coming young players, which we share with you on the show.
Yep.
Up next, Alex Tremor is scouting Gianluca Busio, the 16-year-old American midfielder for Sporting KC, whom we're very excited about. Alex says Gianluca Busio got his first start for Sporting KC in their 2-0 Open Cup win over Real Salt Lake. Busio became the youngest player to start for Sporting KC and did not look out of place in the right side of a midfield diamond. Whichever side he's on is the right side. Overall, he looked very comfortable in the game and made a case for more playing time as Sporting KC advanced in the Cup.
Well done, Gianluca. Well done, Ashley Sanchez, scouted by Ira Jersey. Ashley Sanchez is the 19-year-old American attacker for UCLA. Ashley is back with the U20s and got some minutes as the U.S. won 2 semi-friendlies against Germany and Haiti in France for the... Oh boy. Tournoi Maurice Revelio Ladies Cup, something like that. Oh boy, my French is not good.
Tournoi Maurice Revelio Sud Ladies Cup.
There we go. Good work, Daryl. Ashley saw 31 minutes against Germany, I pronounced that one properly, on Tuesday, and then helped maul Haiti 7-0 with a hat trick of her own. The U.S. begins their U20 Women's World Cup in France on August 6th against Japan.
Go on, Ashley Sanchez. I really feel like we've followed Ashley Sanchez on this path. I hope she gets to the U20 World Cup and scores a bunch of goals.
Yep.
Matthew Shea is scouting Alessio Romagnoli, who is definitely not going to the World Cup because he's a 23-year-old Italian centre-back for Milan. Matthew says reports are that Milan are in some financial fair play trouble. They overspent, right? Meaning that Romagnoli could be sold this summer. Matthew's a Chelsea fan and was aggrieved to learn that reports are linking Alessio with a move to Liverpool.
Well, then maybe he'll be partially happy to hear that. I think right before we started recording, there was a report that Milan may have added yet another investor who might be able to bring them out of financial fair play hot water, and then they can maybe do some spending in the transfer window.
Interesting.
It's all very confusing. I don't fully understand how financial fair play works. Maybe neither do UEFA. Scott Friedman scouting Emre Mor, 20-year-old Turkish winger at Celta Vigo. Turkish media are reporting that there have been advanced talks between Emre Mor and Fatih Terim and Galatasaray. This could just be rumor mongering, but the idea is a potential loan of around €2 million and an eventual €8 million transfer.
Try before you buy.
Note that this is down from the $12.5 million transfer from Dortmund to Celta last year, which is not surprising given all of Emre Mor's issues at Celta Vigo this past season.
Todd Ito is scouting Takefusa Kubo, the 17-year-old Japanese attacker for FC Tokyo. Todd says Kubo was not included in Japan's World Cup squad, nor their under-21 team that's playing in the Toulon tournament, which I believe England won. However, he will be at the World Cup, sort of. Takefusa Kubo has been brought in, along with 22 other U19 players to help train the senior team in the lead-up to the World Cup.
Yep.
So that's great for Kubo. Is that useful for the Japanese senior team to play against a bunch of teenagers?
I mean, maybe they get to win. The only thing I was thinking is, that's kind of risky. There's the story of Klinsmann discovering Jordan Morris when they did the same thing with Stanford.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if there is, grass is always greener. You look at some of those U19s and you think, maybe I should have brought you and not the guy that you've just schooled.
You just nutmeg that guy 3 times. Oh, Kubo. Kubo at a future World Cup, I think.
Indeed. Scott Solari scouting Malcolm, the 21-year-old Brazilian right-winger for Bordeaux. I would be interested to hear how you actually pronounce that name, because increasingly with Brazil and Portuguese pronunciations, like I heard Tim Vickery the other day say Fred, and it is that like Fredge, and I love it. Yeah. So I wonder if there's like a Malcolm or something that I just don't know. Either way.
Ronaldinho.
Oh, goodness gracious.
That's how I learned to say that from Tim Vickery.
Did you really?
Yeah.
All right.
If people aren't aware, he's the BBC 5 Live guy.
He knows all things. Yeah. He knows all things. Inter Milan and Bordeaux are in talks for a Malcolm transfer. Bordeaux reportedly want 50 million euros, but Inter will not offer more than 40 million. Scott expects they'll meet in the middle, especially given that Malcolm himself has already signed off on the move, saying that Inter is the best place for him to develop. Scott concludes, really?
So I feel like we've missed an opportunity here to say that between Inter and Bordeaux, Malcolm is in the middle.
Good stuff.
Jay Worley is scouting Leroy Sané, the 22-year-old German winger from Manchester City.
There's always a half pause after you deliver one of the jokes where you know, like, I don't know if I love that joke.
You can always try to be better. Jay submitted a report last week about Leroy Sané, letting us know that Leroy Sané was left off the World Cup squad, but that there's a strong possibility he will likely be back in the squad for their September friendlies. I believe Yogi Löw even said so, right? We'll see him in September.
I'm sure that will make it all better for Leroy Sané. Dylan Veach scouting Kai Havertz, 18-year-old German midfielder for Bayer Leverkusen. Dylan discovered a recent ESPN article on how Christian Pulisic rates in terms of packing stats, and in that piece was the news that the only 2 players under the age of 20 who had better numbers than him were Ousmane Dembele and Kai Havertz.
Wow. Can you remember what packing stats are?
They're the ones where it's good to pass.
Yes, it's with each pass, how many opposition players do you eliminate? Exactly. How many players do you get past with one pass? Logan Jurgens.
More is better.
Logan Jurgens is scouting Ismaila Sarr, the 20-year-old Senegalese attacker for Rennes. We talked all about Ismaila Sarr in our Senegal preview. Logan says, Sarr scored the opening goal in a 2-1 loss to Croatia in a warm-up friendly. We saw this. In the 48th minute, he used his speed on a perfectly timed run between the 2 centre-backs, brought the ball down with 1 touch, and slotted it in the back of the net with his second touch.
Well done, Ismaila.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see him at the World Cup.
I know that because we just did in lead up to writing a piece, we just did a draft of like who we wanted to talk about as young players. I think he might have been your number 1 choice.
He was in my 5 that I chose.
There we go.
By the way, that's going to be on The Athletic. The Athletic. Taylor and I will publish a story soon, hopefully. We'll submit a story. We'll see if they publish it. 10 lesser-known players to keep an eye on at the World Cup.
Though if you've listened to every single one of our previews, they're slightly more known. Final report comes from Ben Radu, scouting Enes Ünal, the 21-year-old Turkish striker for Villarreal. Enes Ünal appears to have undergone surgery on his pubis bone, which Wikipedia tells him is a bone on the side of one's pelvis. Ünal should be fit to return for preseason for Villarreal.
Okay. Thank you to everybody who submitted scouting reports that we read on today's show. We have more scouting reports in the hopper. We'll be keeping up with scouting throughout the World Cup. But we would say, please only send us reports if it's big news, because they're going to be long days for us, and the scouting reports will make the show even longer. So we want to keep it to the bare minimum of high-profile news to make sure that it's all good. Fair?
Es verdad.
Excuse me?
Es verdad.
What does that mean?
It's true.
It's true. In Turkish?
Spanish.
Spanish? Sorry, I could not. We're talking about Turkish language.
Now who knows languages? What's up?
Not me. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
And right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We will be back tomorrow for World Cup kickoff with our review of Russia, Saudi Arabia.